Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today we're going to be doing a Star Wars Armada ship breakdown for the Gladiator Class Star Destroyer. This is the first small ship the Empire had in Star Wars Armada, and not particularly a widely recognizable ship by people outside of the game. It's from the early days of Armada when they could pull a lot more stuff from Legends and EU and more obscure ships into the game, and we were kind of better for it because it definitely made a splash in the game and was largely seen in mostly just one configuration. So this is actually going to be a very interesting video where we explore multiple ways to use the wonderful Gladiator Class Star Destroyer. So if you guys are new here to the channel, we are still giving away a lightsaber, so all you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. Plus, if you want to learn more about Star Wars Armada, you're in a great spot. Join our Discord. We got a great family-friendly Discord down in the comments section below. If you check all the links down there, you're going to find links to Crabbok.com. We've got lots of videos and information pinned over there. Hop in the Discord, join, ask questions, all that other stuff, social media links, Patreon, it's all down there. So if you want to check out any of those links, be sure to check them out. But be sure to stick around, like the video, share the video, leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on the Gladiator Star Destroyer, and let's go ahead and kick off this video. So the Gladiator Star Destroyer is a small ship in Star Wars Armada. It probably shouldn't be because the Gladiator Star Destroyers are much larger. It's a lot more comparable to a Victory Star Destroyer in that they have almost as much hull, almost as many shields, and kind of perform in a slightly similar fashion, although they are a little bit faster. We're looking at 5 hull on the Gladiator Star Destroyer, both of Models 1 and Model 2. They can go up to speed 3 with 2 clicks of yaw at every speed, so they get a pretty decent amount of maneuverability. And that's kind of why they ended up in the small ship role, plus the fact that the Empire didn't have many small ships lined up for the initial lineup, so they kind of said, hey, this is one of those deals where while it probably should be a medium ship, we need a small ship, so sometimes game function has to trump theme. And so I believe that's kind of one of the big things that motivated why this ended up being a small as opposed to a medium. It's got 3 shields in the front, 2 shields on the sides, only 1 shield in the rear, so it definitely doesn't want to be showing you its rear. It does feature an evade, a redirect, and is a small ship that has a brace, which is always a nice thing. So brace and redirect are nice, but then you toss in the evade in there as well, and you have a very survivable ship considering that evades are even better now than they always used to be. It is a 2-command ship, so it means it's one of the larger halves. There's always kind of like 2 sort of halves of the small ships, whether you have a 1-command small ship or a 2-command small ship. So it's, from a certain point of view, it always feels like we've got 4 different sizes of ships, or maybe a 5th size of ship, because you've got that small, and then that small medium. So it's kind of like a small medium, although it is definitely a small base. Both versions also feature 2 squadron and 3 engineering, making it kind of a flexible ship. And that's an interesting thing about the Gladiator Star Destroyer. It is a rather flexible ship that can perform well in a variety of roles, but primarily always serves as basically a hunter-killer. So if we look at the ship's profile itself, it does actually come into the game as one of the very, very few ships for the Empire that's actually very deadly on its sides, and as a matter of fact, more deadly on its sides than in its front. And that is certainly an interesting way for this one to be. Now, it is mostly balanced, but because it's got more black dice on the side and it's a black dice centric ship, that's why the sides are generally more sought after. You usually want to line up side shots more than front shots. Even in the cases where you have more red dice in the front, you're more likely to get a longer range shot in the front. The sides are really where you make your money on this ship. And that's kind of one of the reasons why when we get into the titles, why the Demolisher is so sought after. Now, if we look at the 2 different versions, we've got the Gladiator 1, which is only 56 points. It's the cheaper and probably the more common version of the ship in that its sides have 4 black dice. Again, black dice is where the ship makes its money, and it maximizes its black dice on the side. And that's certainly, if you want to bring something that's going to do well, you want to specify it or basically specialize it in what it does best. And in this case, the Gladiator one is the best black dice delivery system, out of the two. So, but it also only has one anti-squadron die, so it's not particularly a strong anti-squadron platform. It's more of an anti-ship platform. Now, both versions of the Gladiator have the same upgrades. They have an officer, they have the weapons team, they have the support team, and of course they have ordnance. Now, while this ship does have red dice in its armament, it does not have a turbo laser upgrade. If we spend a few more points and upgrade from 56 to 62, we'll get the Gladiator 2 class Star Destroyer. This ship boasts a little bit of upgrades for the points. The most notable is the anti-squadron armament, with going up to two blue. And that's, of course, that's a pretty big deal, because, again, 2 blue against squadrons is, it's decent range, and you're rolling a lot of dice. You're very likely to put at least 1 damage on every squadron you shoot, if not more than 1. And so that much is nice. Now, if you'll notice over here, we also changed the sides a little bit to have a red die in place of a black die. Now, I think the numbers kind of say that that's technically an upgrade, because those red dice can be rolled at longer ranges, but in reality, especially for a ship that doesn't have a turbo laser upgrade, that's not really usually seen as an upgrade. One thing that it does allow you to potentially roll an accuracy on the sides, since black dice don't feature an accuracy. So when you're trying to get those black dice delivered to enemy hull and get those torpedoes launched into enemy ships, it does give you the possibility to get that accuracy. But without the turbo laser upgrade, or any built-in accuracy generation mechanics, you need some other kind of way to do that. And so you usually have a harder time. So more often than not, this one is not taken primarily due to the lack of really making that red dice count on the sides. Most people would just generally rather have black dice. It's usually how it runs, but there are some ways to make this ship work, and we're going to talk about that when we get to some of the sample builds. Now, as far as titles go, I know you're going to know this one here in the middle, and we'll get to that. But I'm going to go from left to right. We've got the Insidious, which is a cheaper title. It's a 3-point title, and it says the black dice in your battery armament can be used at medium range. This effect applies only while attacking the rear hull zone of a ship. And this is a good title. I mean, it really is a good title. The problem is it's not the Demolisher. And that's really that's the shortest way to summarize this. Look, this is a ship that has a lot of black dice. We already talked about it. It's a great black dice delivery platform, and here is a way for it to be able to give those black dice increased range, and that's great. Now, it's hard to do this because you do have to get behind enemy ships. Of course, it's entirely possible because it's already a fairly fast ship, and it has some survivability to it. It's not a Speed 4 ship, though, so it has a little bit of a harder time getting around enemy ships, but since it's a small ship, and it's got the support team, so it can take engine techs, it can definitely manage that. And so, Insidious is a title that can absolutely work, but you're better off taking Demolisher. So let's move over to Demolisher here. It's a 10-point title. It says, during your attack step, you can perform only one attack. You can perform one of your attacks after you execute your first maneuver during your activation. So what does that all mean? It used to be quite simple, and they had to refine it a little bit with the Armada 1.5 rule set. So Demolisher used to just basically, the rule is, you can attack twice and then you move. And this was like in the first wave of the game, they said, here's a title that's going to completely break one of the most fundamental rules of the game, and that it can do one of its attacks after it moves. And this became extremely deadly. So what used to happen in the old Armada is somebody would kind of get, just out of shooting range or whatever, you'd move in. They'd fly in with Demolisher, especially if they were first player. They would fly in with Demolisher, park right next to you, unload, especially if they had a double arc, and then the start of next turn, they'd do a double arc shot on you. So they'd get like 3 shots on you before you could respond. So they do like side and front. And that's one of the things that Demolisher does, because it allows you to pull up alongside somebody and unload with those broadsides very, very, very easily. So this had to be changed a little bit just to prevent that triple tap. And what I mean by that is if somebody does pull up alongside you in their first player, for next turn, they can still, activate that ship first again next turn and shoot you again, but they won't be able to do a double arc shot on you right away. They're going to have to move away first and then take another shot. So it makes it harder to really give somebody a feels bad situation where they're getting 3 attacks before they can do anything. Now, that still doesn't happen all that often. I mean, in some cases, it could have been 4 attacks, even if you had like a long-range front shot, and then you pull up and do the side shot, and you have double arc, and then next turn you do 2 more shots. So that sort of thing could, and again, it can kind of still happen if you're going really slow, but it's a lot harder to do this if you're flying in fast. And usually Demolisher wants to go pretty fast, so it can get in hit and run tactics. So it can do all of those things. Lastly, we have the 7th Fleet Star Destroyer. This one not usually seen as a Gladiator title, but since the Gladiator is a Star Destroyer, the Gladiators can actually take the 7th Fleet title. Of course, this one initially came out with the Thrawn and Chimera expansion, but it's a 5-point title that allows you can put multiples. This is not unique, so you can put multiple ships with this title. And of course, it says while defending against an attack that targets your front hull zone, before you suffer damage, you may choose and exhaust a copy of this card on another friendly ship at distance 1 to 4 to reduce the total damage by 1. So it's a support title. And usually if you see this one in use on a Gladiator, it's not because you're expecting to be attacked in your front hull zone, but rather that you have a Star Destroyer that you're trying to reduce incoming damage. Like you're trying to be supporting your flagship. This one is not commonly taken on Gladiators, but I have seen some builds that actually will use this to support the flagship. Now, again, out of all of these 3, Demolishers, absolutely the king. And while the other 2 are fine, I actually happen to like Insidious. They really only come into play if you're running multiple Gladiators. And that, of course, is, seldom happens. But there's nothing wrong with running multiple Gladiators. I think you absolutely can. But it's not happen. It doesn't happen all that often. Usually a lot of people who play the game only need 1 Gladiator in their collection, so they pick up a Demolisher and they're good to go. Now, I happen to have 3 Gladiators in my collection, so I have run Insidious from time to time, and it's still kind of hard to make work. Now, I do really, really like, if you're running the Secret Fleet variant that I have published on Crabbok, on Crabbok.com, where you kind of keep your titles hidden, that's when stuff like Insidious and Demolisher come into really, wow, wait, I see 3 Gladiators out there. Which one should I keep my distance from? So that can be fun. But that's just for fun, like a homebrew type of scenario. So let's look at some sample builds. First off, I wanted to do a version without a title. I don't think many people would ever run a Gladiator without a title. But if you had a lot of Gladiators and you wanted to try that, or maybe you just didn't have the points for something else, or maybe you were running a 3 and you didn't want to run 7th Fleet or something like that, and you wanted to just see how a Gladiator might look without a title, I put a Gladiator 2 build together. One of the interesting things about this is that it is a smaller ship, so maybe you wanted to go kind of small ships and a high activation count, but you wanted still tanky ships. You could run multiple Gladiators. That could be something that maybe you do. And Darth Vader is a nice option just to have in your fleet. He gives everybody near him rerolls, and that's always a great thing. Gunnery Chief Varnillion, Darth Vader's choking people out to do that, but it's still a cool thing. Gunnery Chief Varnillion is actually a really interesting option for a Gladiator 2. She's not a weapons officer I would normally put on a Gladiator, but thinking about it a little bit here with the Gladiator 2, you do have that 1 red die on the sides, and it's usually a waste. Well, if you happen to really want that accuracy, she's one way to potentially make that happen. If you end up second player, you can set that die to start as an accuracy. So now you always have an accuracy that you can kind of throw in there. But if you don't, or if you have to use the accuracy, or if you start as first player or whatever, every long range shot you take with that side arc that actually manages to not be obstructed, and you do get to roll the die, it could be fine because maybe you just roll an accuracy, and if you do, you get to stockpile that and save it for the big shot out of the front, or a big shot next turn, or something like that. So I think Varnillion is a way to make a Gladiator 2 a little bit more likely to be able to eventually get that accuracy, and I think that's a kind of a cool thing. We also have the Auxiliary Shields team at 3 points, which is going to beef up the sides a little bit and make this into more of a 3-3-3 kind of shield system, which is very cool. And then Expanded Launchers is one of those really, I think the most expensive upgrade in the game at 13 points, but it's going to give you 2 more black dice on the front arc. So again, if you are kind of charging into somebody and you're using Gunnery Chief Varnillion, to say, hey, let me try and build those accuracies on the side shots. Then when you get to the front shot, you're like, boom, now I've got 6 dice coming out of the front arc because I have a stored accuracy. So like that can be a kind of a cool thing. So these are just some kind of outside the box different ways to think about it. An Insidious build here is definitely going to be using engine text. Now I put a Gladiator 1 on here because, again, if I'm extending my black dice range, I want to have the most black dice that I can, so the Gladiator 1 is a good way to do that. Gotta have engine text on there, absolutely. Probably going to be circling around behind enemy ships, and so like I expect you're more than likely going to have your side arc facing them, so I went with rapid reload here to increase the black dice on the sides, and I put the Grand Inquisitor in there to give you some extra speed maneuverability. If somebody's trying to get away from you, maybe you want to be able to kind of match speed with them and stay at the certain range that you're doing. Grand Inquisitor can help you do that. And here's another kind of cool idea. Again, most times we're probably running Ordnance Experts for black dice rerolls, but here's something that can work kind of cool with Insidious. Consider maybe, just maybe, local fire control, because local fire control is going to give you a salvo. And I mean, if you're going to be at medium range, maybe you don't really need maybe you don't really need that evade because it's not going to be as good at medium range. And now all of a sudden, now you've got a salvo. And if you do get behind somebody and they're shooting you and you're at medium range, all of a sudden now that black die can also be used out the rear, to the rear of them. Again, if it still meets the requirements for Insidious, but you could potentially still salvo a black die at medium range with Insidious, which is kind of a cool thing. Only if, of course, the shot came from their rear arc, so then you would be firing back to their rear arc. So I thought that that's kind of a cool little kind of a twisty. It wouldn't be the first time there was an upgrade card that extended black dice on a salvo to medium range, but of course it would allow that to work. So it's just a kind of a cool way to to say, hey, what if a Gladiator was salvoing? It's like, hey, it's more black dice. I'm all for it, right? So kind of cool stuff there. If we wanted to support Gladiator, I have a Gladiator 2 build here using the 7th Fleet. Now this is with the mindset that you're supporting a Star Destroyer that also is running 7th Fleet. Or maybe you have multiple. Maybe you have multiple Gladiators. Maybe you have a pair of Gladiators, each running 7th Fleet, supporting one big gunship, the 7th Fleet Star Destroyer. Could be an option. And so this way you'd be able to exhaust this one, and then maybe its sister version, you could exhaust that. I put Projection Experts on here as it's a great way to shoot over shields. You've got decent shields here. Ruthless Strategist, just in case we'd have to break down some squadrons that are coming after us. But I also put Commander Oresco on this one, so he's kind of a cool one. When another friendly ship at distance 1 to 3 reveals a command, you may exhaust this card to gain a command token of the same type. So if your flagship is going to be taking all of the fire, such that it needs, the 7th Fleet Star Destroyer title being exhausted, maybe they'll have engineering. All of a sudden, boom, you get to now get basically a free engineering token with each engineering command that bumps you up to 5 engineering points. So now you can be sending over shields, or, moving them around. You can basically be doing a lot of good fun stuff with this one and getting extra tokens and helping to support your flagship a little bit better. And I think the distance synergizes. Now, 7th Fleet is distance 1 to 4, Oresco's 1 to 3. So if you're within 1 to 3, you're going to be able to fulfill both of those, and you're probably flying things pretty close together as well. So kind of cool. Now for the moment you've been waiting for, the Demolisher. This is pretty much, this isn't really my Demolisher build. This is pretty much the Demolisher build. There's a little bit of variation with this, but this is a pretty standard Demolisher build. Of course, it's going to be on a Gladiator 1. Of course, we want to maximize black dice here. I have seen Demolisher on a Gladiator 2, again, if you really want that accuracy, but it's usually a Gladiator 1 with the Demolisher title. Assault Concussion Missiles, you can do 8, you can do these, or you can do the Assault Protons. Also, it's only a 1-point difference, but this is higher net damage, whereas the other one's just a crit straight to hull. But I prefer this is generally better because it's more damage overall over the course of a game. You're going to get way more damage out there. You've got engine techs to help get yourself moved into position. The engine techs are granted. This was changed a little bit, so you're not going to be able to do engine techs and then another move and then a Demolisher shot. But engine techs are going to be good to get yourself set up to where you can eventually make that Demolisher. It gives you a lot more flexibility. Like, all right, I want engine techs for first turn, but then not the second turn because then I'm going to move in. Or vice versa. It also helps you get away from danger faster once you have done Demolisher. So engine techs is still a really good option on Demolisher, although it's not as crucial anymore. Ordnance Experts is pretty much a given here. And then Captain Brunson, she's gone up in price a little bit over the years, but she is still a fantastic card. Just basically giving you much more survivability. As long as you stick fairly close to asteroids, you just get to cancel a die. And since you're gonna be close, you're gonna be getting close to people. It's a great way to cancel a double die, especially combined with the fact that your evade is much better now. So she makes the Gladiator surprisingly hard to kill. And again, that's pretty much Demolisher. Well, and this is like one of the reasons Gladiator and Demolisher are almost the exact same word in a lot of Armada players' vocabulary. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the Gladiator breakdown, aka the Demolisher breakdown. If you guys, if you liked anything that I talked about, I'd love to hear about it. Let me know in the comments section. Don't forget to enter the lightsaber giveaway. Join our Discord. Check out social media, all those other things. I will talk to you guys soon. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this channel possible. So thank you for your continued support. Always remember, when getting on board a starship, make sure you have magnetic boots in case the gravity goes offline.